How's it, everybody? Welcome back to the Hana podcast. It's Willie Paul. I almost called myself Pastor Brandon for a second.
You could have said Pastor Brandon and it still would have made sense.
Oh, yeah. I didn't say, like, I am Pastor Brandon. I said it's. Off to
Identity theft?
Hey, Pastor Brandon. I like the shirt.
Hey, thank you. This is my Fat Thor shirt when I'm feeling overweight with a beard in a bathrobe.
Have you ever grown a beard?
Yeah, it's like 2 strings right here.
I remember when you had that goatee, like, last year.
That was the extent of it, man. That was like 3 months.
Well, this is about the extent of my facial hair growth. So it's not bad. What can I say?
Yep, impressed.
Thank you. But we're not here to talk about facial hair. We're not here to talk about our beards and mustaches. We're here to talk about the weekend message. To get into it, I'm trying to make that kind of like a catchphrase for this podcast. We're not here to talk about blank and then
Okay.
I don't know. I kind of like it. Anyway, we're not here to talk about catchphrases. We're here to talk about the weekend message. Pastor Brandon, you shared about blessed are those who hunger and thirst for righteousness.
Mm-hmm.
You talked about what it means to be righteous, what it means to hunger and thirst, what it means to be filled, to be satisfied. And in classic Pastor Brandon fashion, there was an illustration. The illustration was kind of nasty.
It was awesome.
I was at the 10. I was sitting at the 10. I kind of sit in the back so that if I need to like get up and go do some stuff, it's not like disrupting service or anything. Yeah. Dude, the whole sanctuary smelled like McDonald's pickles.
It was gnarly, right? Like you could totally smell it.
So if you didn't get to watch service yet, go ahead and do it. But at the end of service, the message, Pastor Brandon brings out the fruit of the Spirit, and he makes a smoothie with the fruit of the Spirit. It's all really good.
Strawberries, bananas, cherries, orange juice, like
classic smoothie ingredients. And then he threw a Happy Meal in there
with extra relish and ketchup and Hershey sauce.
Any gross. Reason you went with the burger over the nuggets?
Cheaper than nuggets. You try buying 3 Happy Meals for an illustration.
I gotta ask, what inspired it? The illustration. What was like? I should put a Happy Meal in a smoothie.
Because we've been talking about the series More Than Happy, and how happiness, as we've been saying over this past weekend, happiness comes and goes. It's dictated by our circumstances and emotions to that circumstance. We make a lot of decisions based on being happy, and marketing in American business has really lent itself towards buy this and be happy, hence the Happy Meal. So I just thought it was so apt for what we've been discussing in regards to, do you want the fruit of the Spirit, which is at times long suffering. There's patience. There's things that take a while to develop in our life. Like love doesn't come instantaneously, I'm not talking about romantic love, but just feelings of selfless love for others, or, patience obviously takes a while. Whereas Happy Meals are like instant gratification, right now when I need it. And you can play off of those metaphors as much as you want. Processed foods, natural food, all this kind of stuff. I said a Happy Meal is just like the most appropriate thing. I'm not hating on Happy Meals. I love them. But I think for the illustration, like it was very appropriate to contrast fruit and processed Happy Meals. So.
Yeah, I was like, it makes sense. And then I thought about the Alive summer kickoff that we did, and we did a kind of similar thing where we were talking about choices. And so you had to choose what went in the other person's smoothie. And one of the Alive students had to drink a chocolate sardine smoothie.
Oh, that's disgusting.
Yeah. So definitely not the first time, probably not the last time that the sanctuary has made some nasty smoothies. But
Oh,
man, we
man.
started with the question, and I want to ask you because I don't know if you got to answer this, but what is this wasn't the question that we asked at the beginning of service, but Pastor Brandon, I want to know, what is the one food that like you can eat just every single day, you'll never get tired of it?
Shave ice. Good shave ice.
Good shave ice.
When we went to Kauai, I told a story about going to Kauai and trying to do it the right way. I talked about my kid getting car sick and this and that. One of the things that I loved was just eating shave ice at new places, and like not any kind shave ice, not like the kind that's always chemical or syrupy, or it tastes really weird and the strawberry flavor is a really bright red that'll stain your shirt, right? But rather like more of the natural types that are that taste a little easier on the palate. And Kauai is full of shave ice places like that. So I could eat shave ice all the time. In fact, I'm always looking for new shave ice places to try that are good, ice quality, syrup quality, because it's something the kids will get into. I love it. It's local. That's one of the things. In fact, one of my favorite spots for shave ice is Wailua Shave Ice over on Kauai. And I posted a photo of their thing, and then they reposted me. I was like,
yeah, I saw that.
Yeah.
You made it. You made it into the big times.
Dude.
Sponsored Team Surfer. Dude, I do appreciate a good shave ice, but I'm the complete opposite of you, I think. Like, if I go to shave ice place and it's like we make all of the shave ice, like the syrups and everything, like ourselves, it's like,
yeah,
I want that chemical. I want that, like, you can look at it and tell what flavors because it's like unnaturally bright red and yellow and green.
I don't want Dimetap grape and Robitussin cherry and.
Oh, dude, I love it. I don't know what it is.
When I hit up Wyola, then it's usually stuff like that, and that's legit because their ice quality is legit. So
nice.
How about you? What is that one thing you could eat? Kimchi.
Unironically, yes.
I believe it.
Yeah, I always have a jar of kimchi in my fridge.
Glove box. Oh yeah.
Ew. The perfect post surf, it's long day outside. You go and get some warm kimchi
out of the ground. Traditional Korean kimchi.
Yeah, I have tried that, and it's really good actually. But anyway,
we're not here to talk about kimchi.
We're not here to talk about traditional fermentation of vegetables. Pastor Brandon, you shared about your time in Kauai and the joys and trials and all of the ups and downs of going on a vacation with very young children. And you shared about how it was great, but then it was also like really frustrating. And I think that really hit home in the sense of like, we all want to have this hunger and thirst for righteousness, to do the right thing when things are good. And it's like when everything's great, it's like, this is great. We're doing it right. I'm going to keep doing it right. But then in those moments where it hits you and you're just frustrated and you're like upset and you're already upset, and then something else adds on to that to make it even worse. How do you keep that hunger for righteousness kind of at the forefront as opposed to slipping into being angry or bummed or anything like that?
Wow. You got to start with the hard questions, huh? Well, first of all, I never get frustrated or angry or, because as a Christian, I never get upset.
Yeah, me neither.
Yeah. Okay, all sarcasm aside, there's totally those times when things pile on each other, one after another. And, this scripture about blessed are those who hunger and thirst for righteousness tags on with this promise because they will be filled, right? What this really talks to me about is, hey, how do I desire God's way? Because that's the only way that I'm going to find satisfaction. What's interesting about the Beatitudes is that they're so countercultural, right? Blessed are the poor in spirit. Never would we say, blessed are those who mourn, right? We say, oh, poor thing, right? They're dealing with loss or sadness. We wouldn't say, blessed are, the soft-spoken, humble, gentle, right? Versus the powerful, influential, those kind of people. When this one comes out, blessed are those who hunger and thirst for righteousness. It's almost like I hesitate to lower it to this standard, but it's almost like an equation, if you will, that if you desire God's way, then equals you will be filled. And so many times it's like we're looking for satisfaction, fulfillment, we're looking for everything to be good or the right way, but we're not desiring God's way. So the equation doesn't look like desire right God's way, righteousness, desire God's way, then I'll be filled. It looks like desire what I want, and then I should be filled, right? But that's not how it works. So it's almost like this beatitude spells out something that is common sense, that if you want to feel satisfied, fully satisfied in the midst of what is happening in your life, then it starts by desiring God's way. That makes sense to me. I think the countercultural part to it comes in where we don't always want that.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's why it's countercultural.
Mm-hmm.
I think in our natural person, we want our way, right? I want everything to go right. My Kauai trip, if you remember the weekend message, I want my kid not to get car sick. I want my kid to be excited about what we're doing and not want to go back to the hotel, and be grateful for all the opportunities that we paid money for her to see. And I want to get a dinner reservation at a restaurant near the hotel so I don't have to drive far. That's what I want. I want the easy way,
Mm-hmm.
right? And then I'll be satisfied. If things go my way, there's no traffic, there's all this, then I'll be satisfied. That's what I want. Whereas this beatitude says, actually, if you want God's way in the midst of all that you're going through, then you'll find satisfaction. And oftentimes God's way doesn't look like my way of what I want. I want comfort. Sometimes God allows me to struggle because in the middle of that, I'm turning to Him. I'm reprioritizing what's actually important.
Yeah.
I'm looking to Him for my satisfaction, my fulfillment. It looks a lot different. So when life starts piling on and it's going the wrong way, taking this beatitude to heart is almost like saying, Lord, help me to be satisfied with what you provide, what you show me, right? What your way is, and not just what I want, because I know what I want, and that may not be what you want for me right now.
Dang, that's pretty rough because, I mean, not rough, but I think that especially in American culture, there is the glorification of like rugged individualism. Frank Sinatra, I did it my way, where it's like, you can't tell me what to do. I'm going to do what's best for me. And like, this is what I want. So I'm going to work till I have it kind of thing.
Yeah.
And so this extremely countercultural idea of not like give up what you want, but is what God is calling you to, or is what God is giving you more important than XYZ, which is not great sometimes, a lot of times.
I agree. And I feel like that's the heart of it is, do I really hunger and thirst for it? Do I really deeply desire and want God's right ways? Or do I want my right ways? I think it might be more than just being content with my circumstances. That's one way to interpret it. Another way of it is in my conduct, in the way that I'm treating others, God's righteousness playing out in my life. When I want that.
And like when I wanna snap at this person for doing something wrong, but God's way is mercy and forgiveness and kindness.
Yeah. When I want to rush the process and I'm impatient with things that should be happening by now, and God's way is patience and long suffering and trusting Him, So I think that's where, am I treating, people in my life, whether it's important people like my family or my spouse or my coworkers, or even unimportant people that I just meet in different interactions, interchanges, cashiers, service workers, different things like that I wouldn't see for less than a minute after our exchange. By treating them with respect. Like, what is God's way? Because if I desire that, then I find fulfillment.
Often what I find is it's easy to do what we're talking about, to desire God's way for a lot of things in our lives, except for XYZ. And so it could be like, God, you can, like, I don't care about what I'm going to do for work or like the future, blah, 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 but I need to hold on to this. Or like, God, you can have this, have that, but you can't have this. What are some things that we can do to cultivate this desire, this hunger and thirst for God's righteousness not only in the easy to give up parts in our lives, but the deep, difficult parts to give up.
Hmm. You know, I think what's tough about, desiring God's will, God's way in those parts of our life is that we just hold on to it so much. It's the on the live Sunday service, I emphasized this idea, taken from Lord of the Rings, of the character Gollum or Smeagol with the precious, with the ring. And it was this idea of everything about him was about that ring. Like everything else, nothing else mattered but that. And for many of us, that's the stuff that God is saying to us, hey, let me have my way, especially in that area, that thing that's really precious to you, of things that we hold on to that we don't want anybody else to touch.
Mm.
So I think, how do we desire God's righteousness in those areas? It starts by surrender. It starts by a heart that says, Lord, this is important to me, but because it's so important to me, I'm going to trust you with it. And that is probably one of the hardest things to do when it's something so valuable or important to us. What do you think, Willie?
I'm thinking about Lord of the Rings now that you brought it up. I was watching it in my mind for a second. No, I think that to go with Lord of the Rings, at the spoiler alert, it's been out for however long now, but spoiler alert in case you haven't read the books or watched the movies yet. But it ends with Gollum, excuse me, getting the ring as he's like falling down into the lava. And he like finally has it at the very end, but then him like giving up his entire life to get it is end up what ends him, And so I think that often in our lives, those things that are really hard to give up, if we pursue them with our entire being, then it can often lead to our own like demise, or like a dead end. Just we're stuck in something. And I feel like those things that we don't want to give up are often the biggest roadblock to living our lives looking more like Jesus. Like often some of the biggest roadblocks to our spiritual development, to not I don't want to say like receiving more from God, but opening ourselves up more to God. And so I feel like just making those small steps of, okay, God, today I'm going to give you this, or like looking at the improvements in small ways. I always talk about how for me, one of the big things is for me that I like really, really hold on to is I like need people to like me. And so I can be like a huge people pleaser. And so especially when I go surfing, like, man, when you were talking about how in the weekend you said when someone tells you like unsolicited advice and you get all like, dude, that happened to me. I was surfing on Saturday and this uncle was like, hey, you need to scoot up more on your board. And I was like, I'm just going to leave.
He's just trying to help you out.
I know. But I was just like, man, this dude thinks I'm a kook and he doesn't like me. And like, he's angry at me for taking a wave and being in his way. And like, it just started spiraling and everything. And I try to like, when I go into a situation where I know that something like that is going to come up, where that aspect of my life that I have difficulties giving up is going to happen, I try to remind myself before I go in, like, okay, you're going to do a little better today, or like try to pray, okay, God, like help me to give this up. And I mean, a great way to stay accountable in that, to have people to encourage you, is to join a connect group. I know we talk about this all the time, but that's because we truly, truly believe in the impact that a good connect group can have in your life. And here at Metro, we have incredible connect groups. So if you're not already in connect group, you can go over to our website, metrochristianchurch.com. There's a group finder there where you can look at dates and times and the different kinds of groups, and you can get plugged in, because those are the people that you can text and you can say, hey, I'm about to head into this meeting. I know that it's going to be really frustrating and I have a problem with this person. Could you just pray for me that I can have grace and mercy? Or I'm about to go surfing and I already feel like a kook. Can you pray for me to not worry about what others think?
So that's what you were texting before our meeting, huh? Okay.
Yeah.
No, it's true. I think, to hunger and thirst for righteousness is not something that is easily done alone. In fact, not a lot of what we do as Christians is done alone. So I think having people that will help to keep you in check, to help walk with you through stuff, it's critical to how the way that we can live our lives for the Lord.
Mm-hmm. So if you're not in a connect group, we cannot talk highly enough about being in a connect group. So head over to our website. If you have any questions, there's contact forms. You can email us directly. You can email Cam. I always get this mixed up. Is this email Cameron at metrochristianchurch.com?
I forget.
I
just know it starts with a C.
It is. It's Cameron at metrochristianchurch.com. I always want to say Cam at metrochristianchurch.com, but it's Cameron at metrochristianchurch.com. You can email him any questions that you have, and he can help you get plugged into a group. So
good stuff.
Really good stuff. Pastor Brandon, I'm interested. All right.
Yeah.
What area of your life are you working on right now to surrender to God? I don't want to get too personal.
No, I think it's a really good question. I think it's kind of what I've been talking about on different weekends, just as far as like fathering and parenthood and work-life balance is too general a term, but I think it's more like, when does work turn off for me, right? And when does family be the one thing that I focus on? So stuff like that. I think learning how to discipline my kids well and not be too soft or too hard. So I think last week's message about meek hit home for me because it talks about being humble and gentle. And the idea of having a long fuse is something that I really feel like God has been impressing on me. So it's almost like, remember how the Beatitudes are like, they build on each other? They're like, it's like a staircase where you step from the first stair and you lift up to the next stair, right? I think when I realized, I'm not as patient as I thought I was, right? And the way that I reacted to what my kid just did, or even in my marriage and things that we fight about, there's a better way to respond. And that better way is God's way. It's righteous. And do I desire that? Or do I just desire to be right, or to make my point, or, to be heard, and that's it? So I think that's something that God is working me on. It's really just the continual dying to self, where it's all about me and what I want, and then living to what does God want in my life. So I think those are some things that I'm looking at, and then continually growing, as a person, as a leader. So
that's something that you and I have talked about before. We've talked about on this podcast before, and you talked about on the weekend message. So sometimes I feel really bad because I'll go over to your guys' house for dinner.
Yeah.
And I'm just wrestling right before bedtime and shouting and just yeah. And then you're like, all right, time for a bath. And the kids are like, no. And I'm like, uh-oh. Making the problem worse.
When the Pied Piper comes over, all the rules are out the window.
Okay, good. One time I texted you after because we were eating dinner with your family, and man, it just got rowdy. And I was enjoying it, and I texted you just hey, I'm sorry if I make things wild, a little too wild sometimes.
And I sent you that red mad face, right?
Yeah, and then you didn't talk to me for 3 days.
Yeah, penalty boxed you and from coming over for a while, but we like your wife, so Ashley can come over anytime, but you have to stay in the car.
Yeah, that makes sense. That makes a lot of sense. No, that's really good. That's really good just to recognize that. And I know that you have a connect group that you meet with regularly, and you're talking with them, and they're helping you through that as well.
Yeah. What's interesting about the staircase idea about growing the Beatitudes stacking on each other, right? Is after we are ready to desire God's ways, it's only then, as this upcoming weekend you're here, it's only then that we can desire mercy. Because it's hard to desire mercy for others or give mercy to others without first desiring God's way, So I think that's one of the profound things about the Beatitudes is the way that they just really challenge any believer. As long as you've been following Jesus, it's not necessarily saying, hey, just go be merciful. It's like, well, to be merciful, you need to choose to desire God's ways. In order to do that, you need to be humble. In order to do that, you need to mourn your own sin, and then to recognize your need for God, right? The poor in spirit, as the first step. So that's kind of been blowing my mind lately. Just Lord, how do I desire more of you in the things in my life that I want to hold dear?
That's really good. Yeah, it all kind of leads back to being poor in spirit and recognizing the like deficit that we have on our own.
Yeah.
Heavy stuff.
Good stuff though. And I'm glad we can talk about it on the Hana podcast, just kind of digging into it more. And if you're listening to this, our prayer for you is not just to get connected, because that's a big one, to connect groups. But also that you would just come to a openness of between yourself and the Lord, of just where you're at, just where do you need him to start intervening and giving you direction. And then once you're aware of that, it's take action, right? Don't just like let it be revelation, but let it move you into action. Because
Mm-hmm.
revelation is nice just to be things revealed to you about your life. But if it doesn't move you into doing something about it, it's just personal growth for the sake of being aware, you know?
Mm. Yeah. So it's always been taught to me as head, heart, hands. So once you know it, then like moving into understanding and believing it. And then once you like really know it, not just like knowledge wise, but like you know it in your heart kind of thing, which is kind of like doesn't make sense. Then
Yeah.
like it has to lead to your hands in action. Like it says in James, faith without works is dead. Like faith should be our faith, the things that we believe, knowing that we need to hunger and thirst for righteousness, that we need to be meek, that we are poor in spirit, that should lead us to acting differently moving forward.
Yeah.
That was good.
Super good, man.
Yeah. I'm smarter than I think sometimes.
Well, that's all the time we have.
Blessed are the humble. Blessed are the humble. Hey, thanks for joining us. We've got a lot of really cool stuff coming up in Metro. Head over to our website. We'll see you on Sunday. Yeah. See you at our weekend services. We'll see you online. We'll see you next week at the Hana podcast.
Cool.
All right, everybody.
Everybody. God bless.
Chakas.